Your only sensible aim in life should be to part company with yourself. Any other aim will keep you as sick and as miserable and as dangerous as you now are. You are very much a danger to yourself, and you are the only danger you have to yourself. No one, nothing in this universe is a danger to you except your own mechanical little nature, which you call being awake, being conscious, being sensible, being intelligent. You have no intelligence at all. All you have is knowledge of how to wash dishes and sweep the sidewalk once a month. Outside of that, you have nothing worthwhile. So it's imperative that you understand how to deliberately and voluntarily part company with what you falsely think is you. The way to do that is to do what you can't do. Just now, your life is dedicated to do everything that you can do, which is nothing more than a ball rolling downhill by the law of gravity. You have a certain law of internal gravity in which you roll automatically, easily downhill, getting thrills over the bumps over rocks in which you go up for a minute and then plunge down again. So you're sliding downhill all the time, unless you do what I'm going to tell you what to do, which is, again, to do what you can't do. This means an awful lot of awkward starts, an awful lot of nervous adventures. This means you deliberately revealing anxiety. It means leaving where you now are for some place which you can't describe and know nothing about. Now look at the first value of doing what you can't do. First of all, if you deliberately try a new way to live, which I'll give you an example of in a little bit, if you deliberately try it, it's going to put you into a strange position. Not only will it put you in a strange, unknown position, but if you do it deliberately, you will know that it's strange. Because it's deliberately uncomfortable. Take lying. You know how I started the talk? I said you were all wretched and running downhill and have no brains at all, no sense about anything. Now, the trouble with you is that your lying nature only lies. And so as to feel comfortable, to feel solid and right, you lied. You unconsciously lied and said, that is not a description of me. It certainly wasn't a full description of you, because you're 50 times worse off than how I described you. It's just a matter, I can't go on for a whole half hour telling you how wretched you really are. I can touch on it, and then you have to keep going on it yourself if you have the honesty to do it. So the first value of doing what you can't do is to be shaky, nervous, but know that you are. Now you're in a position where you can say, hey, this is different. Deliberately exposing your own inadequacy and your own falsehoods, you can compare that with logical thinking with your usual self-deceptive state where you think you're honest, where you think you have no trickery or deceit at all, when in fact your whole life is nothing but trickery and self-deceit. That's all it is. It is nothing but that. So you can begin to see a difference in you deliberately putting yourself in a strange, uncertain, unknown position. so as to not be what you've always been. And already you've made a start, haven't you? Because you'll always lie unknowingly. Now you see that you're a liar, therefore that is already an advantageous state, which is seeing through yourself, which leads to self-healing. You know the familiar example, which you have been given before, I'll go over it again, of a path, the spiritual path, leading, going on for hundreds of miles, and leading into a dark woods where it's unknown, which then, after a while, it emerges into the sunlight for a stretch, enters dark woods again, comes out and enters the sunlight again. It alternates, in other words, between you having a bit of sunshine and then going into the woods again. What I've just told you about, of you doing more than you can do, means that when you're on this path, which is upward, at the same time it alternates between dark forests and pretty sunshine. As you enter the sunshine, that is the bit of reward that you had for entering the last woods and sticking with it to the end until it came out and you learned the lesson, right? You simply saw the lessons inside the dark woods, and one of them is that you don't know anything at all. You see, be sure, by the way, because liars who come into this room will twist it and they say, well, I know a lot of things. I know all about astronomy or whatever. Be sure, understand, we're not talking about knowledge. We're talking about spiritual perception, which is another thing. So, to learn, you must never stop at any level of the clear space, the open space with the sun. You must never stop. You must never slow down your pace, as a matter of fact. You must walk right into the next. You know, just as if it's the most natural, pleasant, nice, beautiful, joyous thing to do, which it is, to go into the next woods where all of a sudden all the confidence, which is 99% imagination, 1% true, all the confidence you have in the clear space, all of that is again dashed, is again evaporates. So you're constantly going into the next one in which you don't know anything. And you learn something, don't you? You learn that you didn't know anything. Then you go out into the sunlight. And having learned the lesson, great. Now you're a little bit clearer. But oh, I tell you, there's no end to human vanity, which is, again, imagination working all the time, connected with you, always protecting yourself and saying, I know. The point being, get a speed of, say, 100 miles an hour and never slacken it. Never stop to rest in the sunny places. This is extremely dangerous. We have had a lot of people, thousands of people come to our classes here, Los Angeles and elsewhere, who stopped in the middle of a little bit of knowledge and grabbed onto that and said, I know, and therefore they go out and start their own group. They become a teacher themselves, or they advise other people unofficially or whatever. You are in equal danger if you don't keep going 100 miles an hour into the dark woods. Go through it real fast, and when you exit, don't stop to enjoy yourself. You'll become a little braggart, and the lie will still be intact. 100% into the next one. And at the first 5,000 times you do this, in and out, in and out, and in and out, you won't like it very well because you're so used to slowing down and taking a nap, reminding yourself how much you've got. We're saying, the truth says, don't even give thought to rest, to enjoying it. See, enjoyment is, again, this ego gratification. Immediately you catch yourself wanting to stay in the sunshine, immediately destroy it by going into the next one. I tell you, after 5,000 times of this alternating, instead of your pleasure being exiting from the darkness into the sunshine, it will be leaving the sunshine to go into the darkness. You see why? You know, you can nod your head. You can nod your head if you want sometimes, if you understand, you know. Look, you dull faces, please. The great pleasure of your life will be talking with someone, and where you always lie, not knowing you're lying, you now know you lie, and instead of answering with a falsehood, you go into the dark tunnel and you admit to yourself, if I say what I am about to say, there I go again, a prevaricator, always faking it. How many am I describing? The rest of you raise your hands too to make it complete. See, this is what we're talking about. Taking great pleasure in getting rid of what has made your life a displeasure, which is what happens when you go in and don't fake it, don't bluff, but know that you have done that all your life, starting as a little child. Remember how tricky we became when we grew up? We knew how to trick people and get what we wanted from them. Little kids know how to cry and how to plead. This, this continues over into adulthood, and we don't even see it. A far greater example of how you can do what you can do. I gave you one about when you're talking with people. And I want you to know before I describe it that it is more than words, more than thoughts, more than physical gestures. A certain exercise in self-elevation that I'm going to give you includes all your parts, physical, invisible. And it means building a being, a level, an attitude, a strength, a manner. And I'll use a word I rarely use, but you can enter it, a character, which speaks, which talks, not with the tongue necessarily. It can, because if it's motivated by something higher than the tongue, then you can speak with the tongue, which I am doing now, by the way. But which speaks, and you always hear it speaking, and the world hears it speaking sometimes, depending on the individual hearing you speak from your level of being, from your level of insight. Animals don't hear human beings speak, do they? You know, the rabbit out in the field there, the weasel sneaking around the chicken yard, the weasel doesn't hear human beings talk. That is, he doesn't understand them. This new higher level, which appears as you go through the alternating dark woods and sunlight, which appears very high up there, is expressed, can be expressed in one sentence, which I'm going to give to you, which you again should take with you, and as soon as possible, live from it, breathe from it, do everything from it, which in time will be no difficulty at all, because you will no longer be living your own life, you see? Your old life is gone, and you have a new one that when you come into the building, or you go shopping, you wander around somewhere, at home maybe, it is speaking to the world. Now, I'm talking about a very special type of communication with everyone on earth. This higher communication, which means you've done a lot of things you can't do until finally you see you can't do anything, till you see that this higher level can do everything, because now you're out of the way, expresses itself as follows, and here is the key thought. Your new nature, your new life says to the world with power, oh, what power. And you will know it, you'll feel it. It says to the world, I have absolutely nothing to give you but my present portion of self-knowledge, of self-insight. The only thing I have to give you is the measure of truth that I have acquired so far. I have nothing else to give you. Get it. Understand it. I have nothing else to give you. I shouted, but your new nature will shout it out. People will hear it. Certain people will hear it. Even in a special way, weasels can hear it, because they understand the one word that summarizes what I've just said, which is that tall a no. No. Wouldn't you like to be so in charge of the world, which means your own reactions, doesn't it? So that you say, just by expression, manner, sir, madam, group, I have nothing to give you. You're wasting your time trying to get it. I know you're trying to get something other than that. I haven't anything to give you except a bit of truth. You want that? If you don't, goodbye. I don't want anything. I don't want anything to do with you. There goes the world. Right? Off it goes. The weasels will snarl and show their teeth. You ever known a weasel to show his teeth when you said that more or less? They have to. The old flip-flop. Every time. And look, please agree with this, since it's the truth. Isn't it better to unmask a weasel as soon as possible, so you don't have to suffer from the flip-flop sooner or later? He won't show himself outwardly. She won't show herself outwardly till she's drained you of all they can get. All your sympathy, all your handouts, all your company, all your sex, whatever the individual wanted from you. A high-level human being does that without thought. Does it without even having to plan it. Does it without having to think about results. Because when a high level does express itself, speaks to the world, the results are always perfect. It means that you are cooperating with, being immersed in the truth, then the goodness of that, the goodness of that is your only reward. And believe me, this will take you a little time to get rid of, because we're so far gone. There will be remnants of you, even when you're part way, not all the way, parts of you that still gets a little bit of pleasure out of telling someone off. And this is not at all about telling someone off, about getting an ego advantage over them. It means that the light simply spreads itself, radiates itself, and the darkness has to flee before it. And that's all there is to it. But you being in the light, you can see what you're doing, and never again can that darkness ever approach. If you are the light, if your own darkness has been dispelled through your invitation of the cosmic light, the higher light, then what can touch you? Let's go over it again. What you're aiming for, which started with you doing what you can't do. You can't do that now, can you? So that means you're going to have to enter areas, all kind of areas. Look, you have to do a little work. You know what you should really do? You should get the tape of this talk or any talk. And you should listen to it with paper and pencil by your side and with a shut-off button handy. You hear something, and at the top of your page write, what I must do. That's good. And then you just, numbering is very important. It helps you to do proper mental separation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see how prominently we do that in our classes here and in the books, for example. And you put what I should do, what I must do. Listen to something. We're talking to you. To you. We're talking to you. So you have to write down what that means to you, and this gentleman would write down a different note than that gentleman. That's fine, because it is personalized. We've been all twisted. You've been twisted that way, another person that way, so you have to listen to that, the way that will untwist you as fast as possible. Make a long list. I'm going to tell you, if you just took one tape, and this is an assignment now, one tape and did that, you know what's happening? You're getting yourself involved in your own rescue. Isn't that what you're after? To try to take a truth, a power, how about that word? Pretty good, power for truth, and doing something with it that personalizes it with your life. And while it is true that the penetration into the intellect is necessary, because that's the first door, don't stay in the sunlight, as millions of people do, and glory over the fact that you can quote something that is true. But go into the next area where you see that being a parrot, a quoting parrot, doesn't do a thing for you. Look. Oh, don't you wish we could tell the world this? Either, look, you were one of two things. One of two things. There's no way to get a third one. No. You are either a free, happy, sane, life-understanding human being, or you are lost. I ask you, are you a lost human being or a found human being? You know the answer to that. You're not going to get the world to come into this room. You're not going to get people to deliberately enter into the dark woods of themselves. They want to dream on, don't they? How badly do you want... Look, never mind about getting rid of it. Getting rid of the nags, getting rid of the weasel in you. I'm talking about a different thing, which is called detection. Detection is everything. To detect your little tricks by which you try to be impressive when talking with someone, just to see it as it happens is enough. I am telling you, it is enough. That is the light. I want to take another word and enter into this. Do what you can't do. Just now, you can be sarcastic, negatively, hatefully sarcastic, but the word is sarcasm, you know, the twist, the sneer. How many of you have that habit? Raise your hand, raise your hand. See, look how simple the question is. No, let's start farther back. Will you agree that being sneering and sarcastic is poison for you? Would you agree with that? If so, raise your hand. See, you agree with it, but you can't do it. That is, you can't get rid of it in spite of the fact you see how dreadfully destructive it is. You can't get rid of it. Which proves absolutely And this is revealing, this is detection, that the only thing you have is the thought house filled up. See? What's left? The dark tunnel. The dark tunnel, you can safely say that the dark tunnel is anything that makes you miserable in a new way. That is, you say to yourself, I have been behaving in a certain way toward that man or that woman for months or years. And I know that it is wrong. I know that I do it because I want to feel safe with them. I don't want them to go away. I don't want to displease them, lest I lose some of the benefits I get. Could I interrupt myself to tell you something? It is God or nothing. You know, you don't even learn the lessons from past human relationships. Ladies, remember when you were 18? That marvelous man, what a crumb he turned out to be. Men, that project, that ambition. You got the exact opposite results you thought you was going to get when you went into it. You thought you was going to get rich, instead you got poor, remember? Aren't you willing to give up the world, including that human being who you want to please? Aren't you willing to give up the whole universe for the sake of your true, everlasting, free, invisible, eternal existence? Your values are horrible. And you'll walk right out of here and you'll go right back to the same weak smile. Now, we're not talking about being rude to people. We're talking about being polite to people. But you were rude to people when you try to buy them. You're rude to them and you're rude to yourself. And besides, where did you ever get the notion that you have money to buy favors of other people? Where did you pick up that falsehood? You don't have anything but counterfeit money. Agreed. It works. The whole world is flooded with counterfeit money, which you both give and receive. Buying friendships, buying favors. Putting value on daydreams, putting value on pleasing people, just to hold them. All right. The leap, the aim, you must remind yourself of it every day, because you think so small. You know, the poor, pathetic sparrows out in your yard, and you throw them a few crumbs. How grateful the sparrows are for a few crumbs. You act like a sparrow. The way to find out, to use the illustration again, that you can have a whole loaf of bread instead of little crumbs. The way to find out is to be willing, I'm trying to put this in a special, different way, is to be willing to let everything go that your intellect says is good, safe, valuable, necessary, alive. This means that the extinguishing of your present values voluntarily is the only thing that will show you, going through it is the only thing that will show you that you falsely valued something. You have to challenge it. And you have had certain small experiences in which you understood in a small way that the trash you once valued, you understand that the trash you once thought was gold is trash. Another exercise. Go home when you go home and make another list. And head it former trash I thought was gold. It's a Min this time. Min, write her name down. And after it, write witch. We are all so alive all of a sudden. You ladies don't always get it. I'm not on your side. Well, she was. Gentlemen, beware. The new witch just has on a new fairy princess costume. If you do only what you can do, you'll continue to do only what you can do, which is low-level life. I've given you an outline of how to do something new. Conclusion. Do it. Go ahead. Don't stop for anything. Especially don't stop for your own objections. Go and take a break. I want you to think about two words. The first word is weakness. When I say the word weakness, what picture, image, idea, thought does that put into your mind? It's something connected with you, isn't it? As always, we talk about weakness. You don't care about the weakness of a country on the other side of the world or of a philosophy. You're concerned with your weakness, and that's what we're going to discuss this morning. And I also want you to think of the word strength, the opposite of weakness. And when you think of the word strength, you have nothing to think about. It can't possibly form a right idea in your mind at all. There's no way the word strength, competence, fearlessness can ever present a right impression to you because there's no foundation for it. Weakness you can, because you've had a lifetime of experience with it. And you can think of how you fawn, how you cave in, how you tremble around the lips and around the face, and how you jump inwardly when someone speaks sharply to you, and how you're afraid that someone won't give you something you've been depending upon them to give you in order for you to feel supported. Now, we have to talk about weakness rather than strength, because this is what you can refer to, therefore. All you know is inadequacy, lack of self-command, lack of spiritual self-reliance, not mental self-reliance,
That's weakness. Spiritual self-reliance is what we're after. So you can relate very well to that. To summarize at this point, you can know right now, while I'm talking to you, that you are indeed a very weak, inadequate, wishy-washy, uncertain, doubtful human being. Are we agreed so far? Yes. This is what you are. Now I want to tell you, speaking to you individually, that you are a disgrace to the human race. How dare you continue to go along your day contacting other people, contacting this world? How dare you continue to present your present nature to the world? Don't you have any sense of shame that you go out trembling, fawning, shaken by the smallest social breeze? You're a little boat out in the ocean, aren't you? Where the winds are changeable. Shift every 30 seconds. When the wind changes, you change, and you go in the prevailing direction. For how long? A minute or two, another wind comes along, you go in another direction, No wonder you're not able to have the solid satisfaction of a definite voyage, unable to follow your inner compass to a very definite haven of rest. How can you, when there's nothing in you but a sail without a captain below on the deck, so your little boat goes this way and that way? Anyone can do anything against you. There is no excuse. There is no excuse for you being and remaining weak. Incredibly, you would rather be you, nothingness, weakness, wishy-washy. You would rather be you, that weakness, than have a spirit of power, of lasting, permanent strength. You would rather have your weakness than strength. Why? Fundamentally, because you don't understand the process. Fundamentally, because you have simply fallen into the habit, not challenged the habit, have preferred it all this time instead of going against it, and we'll get to that a little bit. How you can begin to no longer be a weak, wet-eyed, nervous, shaky little person whom anyone can send in that direction or the opposite one as they please, which means you can never please yourself, because you have sold yourself to the slightest breeze. Really, you'll understand what I'm saying. The slightest turn of the head of disapproval and you're off in that direction, right? Someone that you realize, don't you, the more you depend on this world and on the horrible people in it, the more you depend on them, the more susceptible you are, the more gullible you are to their sudden changes of mood. Ladies, The man changes his mood, and you're sad. You wander around the house, and you look out of the corner of your eye, wondering if he's going to change. And if he happens to smile at you a couple minutes later, your world is right again. If you feel right, any of you feel right when someone makes your world feel right, you're in a false world. The very fact that you can be manipulated, put off course, twisted, the very fact that you can do that means you don't understand what you are supposed to be doing all day long along the spiritual path. That you have been attacked by and immersed in the familiar habit pattern, the force of habit pattern of being weak, of not having any say in your own life, and you don't have. Oh, you can brag, and you can lie. Oh, can you lie? Lie so much you can no longer see it, and nobody can get through your thick head. I guarantee you that if you were weak, which you are, you will have ideas of being strong. And those ideas of being strong are your very weakness, and you don't see it. Example. You're afraid of a certain domineering person. And you play a role. You fawn. You cave in before that person, before his sharp words or his so-called authoritative manner. You cave in because you think that there's value in it. You think in your cunning and wrongness, you think that there's a certain goodness, certain value in you behaving in a certain so-called humble, meek way toward that so-called strong person. Stop it! Stop it! Now you listen to me. And you do what I tell you to do. Now what I'm telling you to do is stop caving in. Stop it. Now you don't need to be told any more than that to start. Just start. And it's a good thing, a necessary thing, a vital thing, that you start to get some feeling of what I'm talking about, as well as the words and the ideas and the principles. Without feeling it, a higher feeling, you won't have the motivation to go after what I'm talking to you about. You won't go after the full recognition of your weakness. And listen to this word. You won't go after being utterly dismayed towards yourself, toward your false self, toward the slave driver who makes you walk up across this room. You have to talk with someone. You have a piece of paper in your hand. And first of all, you study them, hoping that they're in a good mood. All this goes so fast, you don't see it. You don't see yourself reacting that way. You walk up to that other person, all scared, not knowing that you're walking up to that person scared. You have to see it. And this idea of having a right kind of emotional, high spiritual kind of emotional feeling toward it is essential, so that you can connect the feeling with the idea, and when the two come together, you have strength. It is not nice. It is highly immoral for you to continue to be a coward. Cowardice is a despicable human trait. And if you are weak, you are a coward, because the two are inseparable. If you are weak, you are a miserable, wretched little human coward. How on earth can you kid yourself? How divided you must be, how psychopathic you must be, to have the smallest notion that you are courageous and right and know what you're doing with yourself, when in fact you are a coward, and the slightest thing from someone can prove it to you, but you refuse to see it. You sure have a pack of nerve to parade around with mere notions of being in self-command, when everything that happens to you, including what happens to your physical body, testifies to the opposite. When you're weak, do you not tremble? Right? When you're weak and cowardly, don't you shake? Don't you cry? Don't you want to run away? Don't you get tense? Don't you get hateful? Don't you feel trapped? Don't you have terrible gnawing pain? I've described several conditions of weakness. Can you recognize them inside yourself even while I'm talking to you? Now, let's cover a certain point from a certain viewpoint. There has to be a reason why you have not invited the higher emotional feeling, which will give you motivation to see your contemptible cowardice. There must be a reason why you refuse to see it. It's called regression. It's called a preference for doing what you used to do and continue to do when a challenge comes up, of running back into your remember your little bedroom you had when you were a child, and playing with your toys, pretending that you're doing something right and constructive and that everything is all right, when all you've done for the 10,000th time is, in a cowardly fashion, run away from the challenge. It's about time, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that you stop running away, and you do that by knowing that you're doing so. You don't have to preserve your life. Your preservation of your life is destroying your life. Your preservation of all that you are is blocking utterly all that you can be. You love what you are, therefore, look at the horror of it. You love being a lying human being. You love being a lying coward, and you are despicable. Let me ask you again, how can you stand living with yourself? Isn't it horrible to have to get up in the morning and be with you all day long? You feel it, but you won't face it. Something in you that wants to be the little kid with the little toys. What are your toys? Shall I tell you a few of them? Toys. You run back and you're attacking other people, sneering at them. And I want to emphasize something again, which has been very strong on my mind the last several months. One of your most dreadful toys is the wish to continue with your cowardly, weak, evil way of life by either thinking hurtful thoughts toward another person or a group, or actually doing something that would cause harm to someone else. I tell you, you don't see it and you don't know that you have no choice but to continue with your evil of attacking, of wanting to hurt others. You don't see that you have no choice because you're completely a machine. All you have is rambling thoughts with no awareness, no understanding of that thought process at all, which means that you're a slave, which means that you're a very sick, unpleasant human being. Well, I just proved it 2 minutes ago. I asked you, how do you like living with you? You hate it. I tell you, you hate living with that weak coward. Why don't you get rid of him? The last thing you do in this room is investigate the alternate you are. That's your tragedy, and that's yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours. That is your individual tragedy. I'll ask you again, a little different approach. How do you feel toward yourself? Real honestly. How do you feel? How do you like it? There's a part of you that says, I like it, and another part of you that says, I hate it, right? You love what you hate. Hate what you love. Because it's all one thing. And that's simply because you coming here in this room week after week and year after year, your weakness and your cowardice has proven to be stronger than your wish to yield to God Almighty. You can tell, and I can tell, and other people can tell what choice you have made over the years here. See if you can understand this. You do have, if you're lost, a wish to hurt other people, mentally, sniping them and all that, because it gives you a feeling of strength. You know, you're on fire. You like that. You like to hurt other people, comparing, jealous, the whole thing. Also, at the moment you do that, you also get the fiery feeling that seems to keep what you call your strength in place. You better write this one down. Strength is thoughtless. Strength, the real strength we're going after, is just there. There's no point thinking about strength, except as the beginning you're investigating it until you get to the point where you see there's no point thinking about it in an attempt to create it out of an egotistical desire to say, I am strong. Ever hear the phrase crybaby? Huh? Let me tell you who's a crybaby. Every one of you. Let me tell you who else is. Leaders of governments, big military men with all their medals, their stars on their shoulders. They are crybabies. They cry. I am telling you. All by themselves sometimes. They cry out in public when someone doesn't salute them properly. All they have is the weakness of breaking down and bawling. All your great religious leaders, you name it, you look at it, you're looking at a crybaby. A big 6'5" man in his business suit, head of the big corporation. He's a crybaby. Okay, let's leave him at the head of the table at the big conference, the corporation headquarters there, and let's get back to us. There is an alternative. There's something you can do, and you remember this somewhere, paper and pencil or in your mind. Conscious aggression. I want you to talk back. I don't want you to cringe anymore. I want you to talk back, I said. Right in the middle of you crying. Now listen to me. I said conscious. Remember that word. I want you to talk back to the world. So that you'll see at the start that every time you do, you'll flop. You don't know you're a flop. You live in self-pictures of being brave, of someone who can talk back to other people and twist them and crush them with your brilliant sarcasm. That's the images you live in. I want you to talk back to the whole world knowingly, so that you see that you have been nothing but a miserable, lying coward all your life. If you will consciously talk back to the world, and I'll detail that a little more because you're so dumb, you twist everything I say. If you will consciously talk back to the world 1,000 times, nothing will happen the first 1,000 except your utter defeat. The 1,001th time, being conscious of your defeat, which means your vanity of being someone who can really tell people off, your awareness that you have been a faker, a coward, a cruel human being by hurting someone, the 1,001th time you will be conscious of your folly. And that is your first step. Consciousness of how you have been nothing but a miserable, vicious, cruel, thoughtless, hurtful human being who is incapable of the slightest gentleness toward anyone. You do that. And after the 1,001th time, the feeling will come to you that something different has to be done as a follow-up to your awareness that you have been a miserable, faking coward. But by this point, you have seen something clearly so that you won't make a mistake as to what you have to do. What you have to do is to do nothing at all. What you must do is not activate the cowardly image anymore. What you have to do is do nothing. When you refuse to act right in the middle of your conscious aggression, when you refuse to act, when you go into it, and as a result of it, you will understand that you have been nothing but weakness masquerading as strength, and that's the beginning of spiritual strength. The door is now open to you. Now let's see a little more detail of what we mean by conscious aggression. Don't you ever again let anyone criticize what goes on here without you saying something right in return. You get it? Don't you dare let a devil say something sneering and sarcastic about me, about the class, about anyone who's sincerely trying in this class. Don't you let it go unchallenged. You wake up and you say, no, you are wrong. I'm going to tell you how you're wrong. And you tell them, right? You're wrong because the very fact that you had that sarcastic look on your face, the very fact that you had to make that accusation proves that you're wrong. See? Look, try to connect. You have to think so supremely, maximum efficiently here. Connect everything I've said so far with an earlier point in don't cave in. You get the sharp word? You get the hard? I said don't cave in. You stay alert. You sit up in that chair. You stand there. You look at that person and you look at yourself at the same time. And you scream at the top of your spiritual voice, no! For the last time I've caved in to your sick, evil remark. And I am now going to go into conscious aggression and tell both you and me what is the truth of the matter. Now you're being brave. Now you're being courageous because you understand that there's something you have to do to connect yourself with spiritual courage. There's you, the center, if you want to call it that. Not the old you, not the old nature. There's you and there's strength. As your old cowardly nature fades away, dissipates in the light of truth, your new nature starts to go toward the strength of the light of God. The two come together and they blend. Now, since that is so, since there's just one thing there, is there any cause for you to ever brag about how strong you are? That's not your strength. What you used to call your strength was cowardice and the talent for hurting other people, trying to drag them down like people who try to criticize the truth that goes on here. Where is your conceit? Where is your vanity? All dissolved in the light of your understanding that there's no such thing as you having strength, therefore there's no such thing as you having vanity over strength. This is the dissolution of the ending of the false nature. And it's the blending of your choice, put it that way, the blending of your choice for the light with the light. But you have to exercise, you have to do things. You have to look at that, ladies, you have to look at that man whose habit has been to get a false sense of strength over hurting you. Men, you have to look at that other man. Who is it? That man who can cause you to quiver, to fall apart, cause you to run away, to lose your reason, to lose your logic, cause you cause you to lose your sense of right memory of how to behave. Have you noticed that? Someone can scare you so badly that you don't know how to act, right? There is no excuse, especially after now. There's no excuse for you continuing to be the weakling and the coward that you have been starting when you came into that door. You can now begin to change it because you've been given the map. Someone mentioned, you've been given the map. Now you can follow that map. Stop being a disgrace to yourself. How can you enjoy yourself when you're a self-disgrace? And lying weakness is a disgraceful state because it's apart from God. Now, you will obtain a new feeling when you obtain a new nature. That new feeling cannot be told to you, described to you, but you can know it, you can live it. And one feature of that new nature, that new state, would you like this? Would you like what I'm going to tell you now? Let's see if you'd like this. Is a state that is so fearless that no one can knock you down. No one can make you run away back to your toys. You're so strong, so awake, so alert, so understanding that no human being on earth, no event on earth, nothing in time or circumstance can ever cause you to tremble again. Because the strength of reality is yours, which you will understand when you have it, because you're living in it, living from it. And oh, how different to be completely calm, in charge of yourself at all times. Like to have it? Let's go. And let's take a break. There has to be something to sink in, which is where the realities enter, spiritual realities enter into the picture. There has to be also a sinky, and that's where you come in, where you realize, maybe for the first time, a new kind of a responsibility. Now, the average human being will do everything possible to shirk his responsibilities and get someone else to do something for him, which is why life is such a havoc. You can't do that in this room if you want right results, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Right results. Right results. You therefore have a responsibility to yourself to not be the usual person that you are out in that world in this room. Now that means you're going to have to do a little bit of right thinking and understand how you behave out there and how much it hurts. If you can see the way you think and act and feel hurts you, and you don't want to hurt anymore, then that can be done. But it can't be done if you're the same person here that you've been out there. Something different has to be here that doesn't have this thick shield up in front of him or her, in which you are protecting lifelessness which you are sure is life. If I ask you whether you have true life or not, something different from this world, if I ask you whether you have it or not, you will start to think about it, which means that you don't. When you don't have lasting life, right life, a good life for you personally, when you don't have it, you're in a daze and a maze. And when someone asks you how you're doing, you think of the last time you had a piece of chocolate cake and got the thrill out of that, and that is your idea of life. I am telling you. How many of you live for the thrill of your particular kind of chocolate cake? I'll tell you one of them. It is called preparing to live. Now, quite unknown to you because you live so unconsciously in the dungeons of your being, your life is filled with preparations. Now follow this, so you can nod your head internally at least and say, yes, that's true of me. I'm always preparing to live, but never actually doing it. Now I want you to see how your preparation to meet that situation, to be right tomorrow or 1 minute from now, that is a very greedy monster that you know nothing about. It's taking away your energy. It's taking away your intelligence. Worst of all, it's taking away the glimpse that you could have of something that is not your name or anything related to it. When you defend a position, you're preparing. My question to you is, why do you have any position at all psychologically, internally, that you have to defend at all? Oh, those millions of pathetic and cruel religious people who have to protect their religion. Protecting it even by seeming to promote it. I wonder if you know that anytime you protect or promote anything, you're all wrong. You're always preparing for tomorrow or next month in which things will be different, in which, for example, the way you feel, you're preparing for that to be different tomorrow. I challenge you right now, tonight, to understand thoroughly what you are doing wrongly, unseeingly, and stop it. And what you are doing is preparing to be a happy man or woman. Why did you get married? No, not because you loved someone or cared for someone. You got married because your life was empty, because you were lonely. Why are you always chasing around somewhere, internally or externally, emotionally, physically, socially, anyway? Why are you always chasing around? You think that's preparation. You think that sooner or later, all these things that you're doing are going to be rewarded, and you demand the reward because you say in your complete delusion, I surely must be an intelligent person who knows what I'm doing. And surely, with my intelligence, with backing of what you call God, whom you know nothing about, surely, sooner or later, I will reach the goal. You don't want the goal to be free. You don't want to be happy. You don't want to be complete. You want to lie to yourself. That's all you want to do, is lie to yourself and never see that you do. Well, well. Let me tell you where you are. You are on a fixed fate. I will guarantee you what you'll do tomorrow. The same thing you did today. Nothing is going to change because you want to get the illusion that things are going to change in time by you preparing for it. There's no way, absolutely none, and you write this down, there's no way you can ever prepare to be a free, decent human being. Happy human being. There's no way you can prepare for it. Now you see, I say that you can't prepare and must not prepare. Are you going to let that sink in so that you try to see where you were preparing for it? Who are you clinging to? Who do you need to have around? Who's that man or that woman that's essential to what you call your well-being? You're preparing, I'll tell you what you're doing. You're preparing for the continuation of your anxiety. You know you're anxious. You know you're not settled. Why do you keep the apprehension and the fire going by doing the precise thing that keeps it going, which is preparing to keep yourself going from day to day? Deliverance consists of knowingly doing nothing for or against yourself. Now you want to know how to get out? I've just told you. Never do anything. Never prepare, never plan, never scheme, never do anything for or against yourself. Because if you do something for yourself, it's against yourself. Same thing. Now, let's try it again now. Let's see if this can sink in. Who is the man? Who is the woman that you are going to make happy through your present plans and schemes? Who, what are you going to make happy? Aren't you thinking thoughts about thoughts? Yes. And aren't you saying, if I can convince myself that I'm my thoughts, I can use other thoughts to influence those thoughts and be happy? For example, I can dream of a marvelous future, even some heaven way up there and far from now. Or I can dream of an immediate cessation from pain if I keep going in a certain direction. I want you to know, finally, once and for all, one thing that you must know, and you might as well know it tonight. There's no point in any of you continuing in this class the way you're going. There is a point in continuing in a different way in this class. I want you to know that unknown to yourself, you have made preparation for being happy your chief delusion, which prevents it. If you stopped entirely thinking that raise, that sex, that romance, that contact, that move to another state, whatever, if you abolished all your plans, do you know what you would be? You'd be a good man. You'd be a good woman. You would be a harmless man. You would be a harmless woman if you abolished them completely, because you would have seen that there's no central self there for which you can do anything. Oh, I'll tell you, it's pretty dreary to work hard as you do, all 24 hours for nothing. If your boss didn't pay you at the end of the week, you'd get pretty distressed and mad, wouldn't you? How come you're not indignant over what you're doing to yourself? Working without real pay, working to keep the illusion going in a circle, on and on and on. Evidence that you're still so sad and so lonely, wondering when it will all end. Well, you can stop wondering when it will all end, and I'll tell you. Unless you let it sink in, it isn't going to end. Let's this time get a lady as our illustration. I usually have a man. I'll let you ladies in on it this time. You ladies ever prepare for a party, you know? The pretty pink dress and the bow and the hair, the right shoes and the sash. And you stood in front of a mirror, huh? And the sash was exchanged for a belt, and the pretty pink dress for a pretty green gown. Instead of a ribbon, a little ornament of some kind. Then you looked in the mirror again, and you thought of the forthcoming ball that you're going to, and you changed again. And you went out the door, and you got in the car, and you got out of the car, came back in again. I had a sister. You prepare for the party of life. The lady prepares, and she goes down to the ballroom. Oh, let's follow her. She goes into the ballroom. She's all alone. You know, sometimes you don't have an escort. Sometimes you're better off. Right, ladies? Nod your head, ladies. She goes into the ballroom. Think of the money she spent on that dress, the shoes. Think of the time she spent. Think of the expenditure of emotional energy. Think of the changing back and forth, the anxiety. Well, will this please him or them? She wants to look just right, huh? As attractive as nature made us, with the little additions, right? And so she goes to the dance. Now look. Please don't take this as being too simple. It's very profound. She spends all that time dressing, all mixed up with expectations of what the dress and the pretty shoes will do for her. At the end of the party, is she any different than she was before? Or the next week, next Saturday night, does she have to go through the same thing again? I'm using an outer illustration to teach you the inner. She has to go through the same preparation again, and nothing happens. There's no good results. There's no good results, even if she meets that man and eventually marries that man. There's no good results yet. All because she has wasted her life in front of that mirror and in front of her own imagination, hoping to influence
the exterior world favorably, so the exterior world, being influenced favorably, will say, I like you, you're fine, you're pretty, you're attractive. And at the end of that sentence, ladies, from the man, nothing has changed inside of you. Your nature hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, all the flattery and the compliments, now you're wondering when they're going to end. You're wondering when the drudgery is going to set in. Let me give you ladies something a little personal. Ladies, please try to realize with a higher realization that God can change your nature so that you, listen, so that you can stand in front of the mirror if you want, because it's proper to have a pretty dress if you want one, a pretty hat. And you look at it and it's reasonably acceptable at the ball. And you go to the ball and you're wide awake. And you don't care what happens. You have a social self. You like to get out. You go to the punch bowl and you talk to the men there, and talk to the other girls. You mingle with the crowd. Maybe you danced around. Did it ever once? If not, let it occur to you right now. Let it occur to you right now that you can take the Spirit of truth with you to that ballroom. What's the matter with you? That you have your spiritual life in such compartments. Don't you realize that spirituality is one thing? Wherever it goes, whatever happens. And if you go into that ballroom, ladies or gentlemen, in the Spirit of truth, what is inside of you, that power, that spirit inside of you, can never be a slave. Ladies, you look at the handsome man at the punch bowl. Remember how you hope that he'll notice you and offer you a glass of punch, and that'll be the start of the romance? Why do you go over it again and again and again, either in daydreams or in actuality, afraid, when you don't have to be? You want to go to the ball, go to the ball. But let reality go with you. Let it do your seeing, your hearing, your thinking, your acting, your reacting.